Hey everyone, so with E3 coming up, you know the big video game convention that happens every year in Los Angeles where they reveal new games and consoles? And I wanted to do a gamer tag for you to help hype myself up and hopefully you guys for the new games and consoles coming out. So I already Googled gamer tag or video game tag, and there's already one out there, but not many people have done it. So I wanted to give it a try of my own, bring in my own flavor, because as you can see, I am a big video game fan, and I try to show that through my game time videos, but I would really like to get some other gaming things on my channel, so I thought I'd start with a gamer tag. So let's get started. Question 1. What was your first video game slash video game console? Now some people might answer this with two different questions, but for me, my first video game was on my first video game console, and that was one of the Ataris. It was a hand-me-down from my mom, and I was 5 years old at the time, so excuse me if I can't remember which Atari. And I can't really remember my first video game that I actually played, but the one that I remember the strongest from that system was Pong, and I think it was mainly because it was the one me and my brother played the most, because it is a two-player game, so, and it was easy, because I'm 5. Question 2. What was your favorite video game from your childhood? So yeah, this one's definitely hard for me because I grew up with a lot of different systems and a lot of different games, and I think I've narrowed it down to 3. So they are Resident Evil, the director's cut, and it was my first real horror game, and I thought it was really great with the puzzles, and it was something me and my family could play together, though separately, single player, but it was a good game. My second favorite game from my childhood would have to be Super Mario Kart, because it was a game that me and my brother could work on and play together, and I just had a lot of fun. Plus I got to be Yoshi, so that was exciting for me. And then my third favorite game from my childhood would have to be The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. It was my first Legend of Zelda, and it was the first game that really got me into the story, made me feel like I was the character saving the princess, other than those side scrollers where you feel like you're playing a video game, where Legend of Zelda, I felt like it was in the game. Question 3. What's your favorite game from this current generation? So another tough one, but I have narrowed it down to one, and I picked 3D Dot Game Heroes for the PlayStation 3. I like how it had a nostalgic feel to it, but it also brought in some new concepts like the unique 3D dot graphics, and that you could create your own character and play as that hero. Question 4. What is the worst game you have ever played? So for me, hands down, Bubsby 3D. Like, this game is really that bad. I didn't even have to think about it. I didn't even have to question it. Pulled it right off my shelf and I said, this is the worst game. Now, this is a sequel. There were a couple of side-scrolling adventures for the Sega Genesis starring Bubsby, and they had sort of witty slash corny lines to it. And some of the death scenes were just really funny. It's not like you died when it's like you turned into a puddle or like an accordion. You know, the cartoon humor to it, that's what Bubsby had. But 3D lost all of that. It didn't even have the cutesy cartoon graphics. Now I know this was at a time when 3D was just coming into its own, so game designers were still playing around with it, but they just left everything so unpolished, and the game just wasn't even any fun to play. So it looked bad, and there was no interesting gameplay elements to it. Question 5. Single player or multiplayer games? Which ones are your favorite? So for me, while I do love playing my single player games, I think I'm leaning more towards multiplayer. That's only because I just really like interacting with people. I think it's a lot of fun, even when I'm playing a single player game, to know that a friend or a boyfriend is playing the same game along with me. It's something I can discuss and just get more out of the experience of gaming. And of course, then there's those games where you just pick them up and you sit down with a friend and you can just beat the living. So number 6, are you a PC gamer or are you more of a console gamer? So this one's pretty easy for me. I'm definitely more of a console gamer. I grew up with consoles a lot more than I did playing PC games, And that's not to say that there aren't really great PC games or that games aren't better on PC in certain situations. Like, take The Sims for example. That game is definitely better on the computer. Don't even try it on the console if you haven't yet. It's just not worth it. But for me, there's nothing better than just having a controller in your hand versus a keyboard. And also, I tend to gravitate more towards the games on consoles than for PCs, so it's not just about controls or graphics or anything. I like the games that I see more on consoles than I do for the PC. Question 7. What's your favorite video game moment? So for me, this was back in college, and it actually happened to be on Valentine's Day. And we had this huge snowstorm that they canceled all the classes for today, and our dining hall was even closing early. It was pretty bad. So it was definitely one of those days where you want to stay comfy indoors. And I was just walking through the halls in my dorm, and I had passed by our common room, and I noticed a bunch of people gathering. So I went in trying to see what was going on, and they had a Nintendo 64 hooked up. So when I was in college, the current consoles were the Nintendo GameCube and the PlayStation 2, and it was moving into PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo Wii. But it definitely wasn't common to see a Nintendo 64. So the game they happened to be playing was Mario Party, and I loved that game. So somehow I got in on that game, and I didn't really know any of these people, but I still had a really good time. So it was sort of like an unexpected gaming moment, and I think that's why I remember it so well, and I had a really good time, and so for me, that was my favorite gaming moment. Number 8 is your worst gaming moment. So for me, it was my whole experience with Final Fantasy VII. That's right, this game right here. So it wasn't the game itself. I actually really enjoyed playing the game while I was actually playing it. But there were a couple times when I was playing it that just sort of ruined the game for me. I don't know, it's still a really great game in my book, and I still really had fun playing it, but I'm just so frustrated whenever I hear Final Fantasy VII, and this is why. So when I first got the game, I started a save, and my mom started a save. And my mom was also into gaming, but she couldn't get into Final Fantasy VII, so she didn't get very far in the game. And eventually I took a break from it as well, but I wanted to go back and play it. So I loaded up what I thought was my save, started playing, and I thought to myself a few times, like, this doesn't feel right, I think I've already done this. But since I hadn't played in a while, I wasn't really sure. So I just kept playing for an hour or so, and then I went to go save my game. And I saved it under my spot. And that's when I realized, after I had saved the game, that I was actually playing my mom's game way back in the beginning of the game, and I just saved over my slot. So a few years later, when I got a PlayStation 3, I actually bought the game again for a digital download copy and started playing it. And I got really far. I got actually to the last cave, I think it is, before you battle Sephiroth for the final time, and I got stuck. And so I was frustrated, which I do if I get stuck in a game. I put it down for a little bit, and then my PlayStation died. So there went my save. I don't think I'm ever going to finish Final Fantasy VII. So that is definitely my worst gaming moment, is when you find a game you really like and you just keep losing your saves. Question 9. What game do you think deserves a sequel? Now, I don't mean a game that already has a sequel and you just want another one. I mean they made one game and then just stopped. So for me, this is Alicia's Dragoon for the Sega Genesis. I played this a lot when I was a kid, and I'm going to tell you, it's one of those games that was pretty hard. Back then, games were. But it still didn't take away the enjoyment that I got from this game. You play as the protagonist, Alicia, and she has 4 different dragon companions that you can switch through. Each do a different attack, but you can't control it. You have your own attack, however, but it's just kind of like a helper in the game. But it was just one of those games that I had a good time playing. I thought it was a neat concept, and I would really like to see a sequel, as long as it's done right. So question 10 is, what video games are you currently playing? So the past couple of months or so, I've been on my 3DS quite a bit, and I've been playing Luigi's Mansion and Pokemon White. So both games are a lot of fun, but let's start by talking about Luigi's Mansion. So this game is a sequel, and it might have been my answer to the question about which game deserves a sequel. So now we have one, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's definitely structured a little bit differently. It has more of a level type feeling than the other one did, and I like the open feeling of the last one, but this one's still a pretty good game. As for Pokemon White, I know it's a couple of entries back, and I'm a little bit behind because we are on Pokemon White and Black 2, but I wanted to start with White. So it is one of those single-player games that you can kind of play with a friend. My boyfriend is playing through it, and we're just trading off Pokemon, and then you can battle each other as well. But it's just another great entry in the Pokemon series, and I find it a lot of fun, and I'm currently addicted to this. So the last question is, what games are you looking forward to? So for me, there are 3 games. There's obviously Pokemon X and Y that I'm looking forward to. I'm planning on getting X, and my boyfriend's planning on getting Y, and we're going to do the same thing we're doing with Black and White, playing through together, and so we can trade Pokemon and battle and stuff. The next one I'm looking forward to is Animal Crossing's A New Leaf. I'm hoping that they do a lot of changes as for the others in the series, since the first one, they haven't really changed much. I know now that you can swim in the water, and they've added the island back that they had in the first one. Plus, this time you're also the mayor, so I'm really hoping there's some new game mechanics that make it fresh, but I did have a lot of fun playing Animal Crossings when it was on the GameCube, so I'm hoping that I'll get the same feeling. And the last game I'm looking forward to is The Last of Us. It's done by Naughty Dog, the same people that brought Uncharted, and I really liked Uncharted. I liked adventuring around different areas, and this sounds to be similar, yet different enough to have a fun experience. So that's my video game tag. I'm basically just tagging anybody who watches this video and wants to do this tag. And if you do the tag, please leave a comment below or leave a video response, and I'll be glad to watch your video. Until next time, bye!